That's at chess.com, and I'm here to examine a game submitted by horwaileong. Hope I said that right. It's submitted in my member poster best games of chess thread. Of course, I'm taking any kind of submission. You get one game, get a chance to see how I can analyze your position and help you out. And this was a 30-minute game that was submitted, played it in live chess at chess.com. 30-0 is not the ideal time control, but it's decent. You do have time to think. Your best time control, of course, is where you have like 40 moves in 90 minutes, or we can play increments like 90-30 at chess.com. In my video lessons group, there's a thread where you can look for opponents to play longer time controls with and post your own information. I highly recommend it. Okay, so let's take a look and see what happens here. And we have the French defense so far, and this is basically a beginner's move. White shouldn't be bringing his queen out. It's just going to get attacked. There are some people that try to checkmate on f7 as fast as they possibly can. But one drawback with this position, see this black pawn, it's on e6. White would like to follow up with bishop c4 and mate on f7, but it's not going to get the job done. So I'm pretty much convinced that if you're down at this rating level, there's immediate hope for you, because if you'll just be careful, the mistakes are waiting to happen. You just have to not make any of your own. And we'll look for some ways to how to try to avoid this, because this game is full of a lot of mistakes. And I can see by the moves played what the intention was, but we'll evaluate these things as we go. So anyway, as I say, queen h5 is a mistake, and black handles it just fine. Develops a piece and attacks the queen. So now the queen has to run. Okay, so queen to f3. Now here comes d5. Now, there's a lot of moves here that black can play. They're all fine. There's nothing at all wrong with what he did. Nothing at all. c5 is a move going into a Sicilian type formation. Just bishop e7, getting ready to castle, is fine. But d5 works. But here, I think black made a tiny error in how he recaptured. Okay, how would you recapture? Think about it for a second. Pause the video if you need to, and think about the reasons why you'd want to recapture in either way. Okay, I think it's, well, black recaptures with the knight, but I think it's better to recapture with the pawn. And by recapturing with the pawn, you open up a diagonal for this bishop. Okay, so I think that taking with the pawn is better. It opens up the e file, but black has nothing to fear on that. He can block it with bishop e7 and get castled in a hurry, and before white can muster up anything. So, okay, so he plays knight takes. I think that's a mistake. And as I say, there's a lot of blunders in this game, and we'll point them out as they happen and try to figure out why they happen. So it's black's move, and he elects to play c5. Now, there's nothing at all wrong with c5. Not at all. I even suggested earlier. But at this point, you want to start thinking about candidate moves and other ways to continue your game. And the first thing is, what's the number one rule I always preach in my videos? Development. Yeah, exactly. So just play bishop e7 here and get ready to castle. And then think about developing the rest of the queenside pieces. So there's nothing wrong with c5. It takes a certain stake in the center. It has some pressure on d4. Okay, it does have the drawback. It blocks the bishop in, but that's not all that important. The bishop is going to be well posted on e7. But development is always a good thing. Okay. Now, next we're going to get a double error. Okay, now there's no timestamp, so I don't know how long. They don't have a timestamp of the moves on chess.com, so I don't know how long they took. I'm assuming a 30-minute game. Hopefully, they both sides did take some time. But now what's happened? White White started out by developing his queen right away, and Black brought a piece out, and he's only brought one other piece, and that's the only piece he brought out, and he's since moved it twice. Now suddenly White has 3 pieces out. So, and then actually White has a threat now, and both sides overlook it. Okay, it's kind of amazing the number of threats that come up that are overlooked by both sides, or maybe they saw them and just hoping for the best. I don't know, but I'm not exactly sure what level Black is on, but he's asked for my help. But count the attackers. Okay, the bishop can go to d5, the knight can go to d5, and the queen can go to d5. Okay, what's protecting it? This pawn and this queen, and that's it. You need to take care of this knight. Now, how do we do that? Okay. Well, I'm always against moving a piece a lot in the opening, but in this case, there's 2 interesting choices. One is knight b4. The idea of knight b4 is it has a threat on c2. It's threatening to win some material. Right, takes check and pick up the rook. And I don't think White has enough to generate any kind of reasonable counterplay in that position. Well, maybe. Let's see. There's some tactics here. Okay. Check with the bishop. Well, actually, though, in this case, since we have the knights coordinated, we can play the sharp knight 8 to c6, or we can just play a conservative knight from b4 to c6. Now that gets rid of our threat, but we're just trying to refocus, stay solid, and get developed. But I think White's done okay here. Even though he's had his queen move out, White's getting his pieces out. So somehow Black's kind of messed up a little bit. And the drawback with putting the bishop in here to check is that b7 falls. So the other alternative is to play knight b6. Okay, knight b6 tempos the bishop. If the bishop drops back to b3, there's a trick. The pawn goes to c4, and White's going to have to give up his bishop. Bishop a4 check and take, or Black can just ignore it and develop. But the sharp move is to check. Now, I don't think. Well, actually, it's Black can try and make a sacrifice here. Okay, we're giving up this pawn for development. See here, the rook on a8 is guarded by the knight on b6. I'm not sure if we have enough compensation for the pawn. So, what are the alternatives? Well, there's one other alternative, and that's to take this knight. And when you make a capture's a forcing move. White does not have time to make this check. He has 2 alternatives. He can take with the queen, or he can take with a pawn. The more interesting, if he takes with the queen's no longer on that diagonal, but it's on a new one. It's menacing g7. So that might be a good move. Then Black can't normally develop his bishop too easily. And White can also play the double-edged d takes c3. Now this gives Black a pawn majority on the king side, 4 pawns against 3. But White's getting active development. This bishop's ready to run in the game, and has that whole diagonal open, and a rook's ready to come to d1. I'm not recommending bishop g5. It can be taken. I'm just drawing the diagonal, showing the bishop has an open diagonal, and the rook can come to d1. Now that has a threat. So all of a sudden, Black's got a wee bit of difficulty here, and he's kind of brought it on himself. Number 1, by taking this knight on this square and not taking with the pawn, and number 2, by playing c5 and not developing. Okay, he needed to develop. So, as I say, it's a bit of a comedy of errors here. Black gives White a pawn, and White doesn't see it. White doesn't take it. So what can I say? What does White do? He plays A3. Let's back it up a second. But clearly, what's wrong with this? Knight takes. Okay. Just 3 attackers, 2 defenders. You need to take it back. You're down a piece. Now, how does Black or White want to do this? We can take with the queen. We can take with the pawn. I mean, with the bishop. Let's take with the bishop. Okay. Knight B4 could come in. Oh, it can't come in. We have mate. So, what's Black left with? Knight E5, walking into a pin. You know, it can get sticky here in a hurry. So, at least Black made a developing move. What White does when he misses this thing is he doesn't even make a developing move. So what he's trying to do is keep a knight out of this square. And I've talked about this in a lot of videos. These are wasted moves. Black can breathe a sigh of relief because he's getting away with his mistakes. Okay, you know, he had a tactical loss of a pawn, and White didn't see it. So I think Black makes a good move here, Knight E5. Normally you want to get developed, but we still have that threat. We've got to deal with it. And what better way to deal with it than to get rid of some of the pressure? And now White blunders. Okay, like I say, this game is full of blunders. The queen needs to guard the bishop. It's got to go to E2, and it could get molested again. Knight F4. The queen E2, Knight F4. No, wait, you're going to take this knight. Sorry. Okay, I can't see one movers. I can see long combinations. But anyway, queen E2, and then just knight takes and queen takes, and then Black goes about his business and gets developed and has secured the bishop pair. So White doesn't play that. He plays queen G3 and gives up a free piece, and there it is. So now Black has a winning game. Black's just up a piece for nothing. And so White creates a threat that, well, doesn't really create a threat. He's eyeballing C7, but it's well protected. See this knight on D5? It's got it covered. So what Black should probably do is, well, what he did's okay. You know, I want to play bishop E7 and get castle, but there's pressure on G7. So what Black did is okay. He's up a piece. And now White tries to chase the knight out of there. It doesn't really matter. Black has closed the diagonal to C7. The H2 to B8 diagonal is closed. Okay, so a little bit of maneuvering here. And neither side seems to be concerned about getting castled. And that's got to get done. You got to get your king to safety. You got to get your pieces developed. Well, this next move seems to help get developed. You know, Black wants to play bishop E7, but this pawn is open. So this move seems to make sense. It attacks the queen, and it guards this G7 square at the same time. It makes White find a new home for his queen. And White chooses F4. And this is the point where Black needed to develop, okay? You always got to get developed. When you get your pieces out, they can work together. When they're sitting at home, they're not doing any good. You're not going to be able to utilize them. So a good move, remembering you're a piece ahead, here's what Black does. I mean, it's not that bad of a move, but these guys, see, they're crying, screaming, get us in the game, you know. Your best players are on the bench, okay? You got to use them. So what's perfectly logical here is just gain another tempo. Bishop D6. Okay, this develops the bishop, prepares to castle, and attacks the queen. What more do you want? Well, here's what you can get out of it. White either moves the queen and Black has gained a tempo, or White makes exchanges. Well, that's fine. We don't mind making exchanges. Let's just trade down to a one ending. Now your queen's under attack. I'm going to trade queens, I'm saying, if I'm Black, and I'm going to beat you in the ending because I'm a piece up. So suppose White obliges. Wow, Now development isn't as important. We still got to get the rest of the guys in, but this is an easy win for black. Simple and easy. Case closed. Okay? So it's nice that I see the point. Like I said, I do see the point that behind the moves that are being played, this is threatening a check, okay, and winning a rook. But it does seem to force this knight off too. That's another way to do it. But just a direct tempo on the queen is fine, and get the guys that are on the bench in the game. This knight on f5 was already in the game. The move is okay. It doesn't cost black any, but there's a better move. Okay, you want to get in the habit of getting all your men in the game. Okay, don't move pieces 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the opening, even if they make threats, even if they stop and win you a pawn. If the rest of your guys are at home, you can get stung. Okay, so now white plays king d1. That's kind of a concession. Now the king voluntarily gives up castling, and here once again it's time to develop. But we have this nuisance threat here now. We've got to deal with it. Okay? So how does black deal with that? Well, let's see. Maybe black's basically messed this up. I remember he's going to give up a couple pawns here, which he didn't have to do. But what else do we do? That's a threat to play knight c7 check. So how do we stop it? Very interesting question, isn't it? Let's see. So I guess this knight duh, knight takes b5. Okay, knight takes b5 is the move to play here. You've still traded off a piece. You didn't have a chance to trade queens, as my line showed, but white needs to retake and just play bishop d6 now. Tempo on the queen, and you're ready to castle. Okay, if queen g4, suppose white tries a trick. We have defenses. Now he has a mate threat. Well, you can cover that. Queen f6. Okay, you don't want to play g6 and give up the rook for the bishop. But e5 is just a blunder, okay? But I said there's lots of blunders here. It's okay. We're going to work on correcting those. So that gives us the problem is this just gives up a pawn with check. And unless you have something dastardly planned out, you don't want to give up a pawn with check. I actually know of a game. I'd like to get it recreated. Let's see. Kamran Shirazi's international master used to play in L.A., one of the most tactically gifted players I've ever seen. He set up this position in the opening where he was going to answer a discovered check with a discovered check, if you can believe that. It was just beautiful, right out of the opening. And another friend of mine, FIDE Master Dan Durham, was asking, what do you do if he plays this aggressive move and sets up a double check or a discovered check? And Shirazi told him. And then Durham played the same opening a few weeks after that. Danged if he didn't do exactly what Shirazi had set up. Answered a discovered check with a discovered check. It was just pure brilliance. So, but normally you don't want to give up a pawn with check, okay? There's exceptions, as I just said. But giving up a pawn with check is usually not a good thing. But I've seen it happen. I've seen a few cases. So now this resumes the threat of knight c7. And white could do that. It might not be a bad move. Knight c7 check, displace the king, pick up the rook, and then what's wrong with it? King here, plop. Let's see, what's wrong with it? Well, we guess we have to put our knight in the corner, right? If we want to take. Now black has two minor pieces for the rook. Neither side can castle. To me, this looks like an even game. When you have players that are making blunders, anything can happen. So, but what white played's okay. Let's see, check. He interposes with the bishop, and then white grabs this pawn. a tempo on the rook. So all this could have been prevented had black gone ahead and found a way to get castled. Now he's got to deal with his rook. So he tempos the queen. The queen comes back, and look, there's that threat again. Hasn't gone away. So black finds a good move. I think that's a good move. It attacks the queen. But what was wrong with knight takes knight? Just get rid of that threat once and for all. Okay? Nothing was wrong with it. Now black castles, but you see he's missing something. He's missing a pawn that was there sheltering his king. It's not there anymore. So black's still winning, but he's made it a little bit tougher on himself simply because maybe white's going to get some counterplay there. So white throws caution to the wind and says, hello, knight. And the knight goes back. Now white decides to trade it. And this is fine for black. He's just winning pieces. I mean, he's a piece up. He can afford to make trades. White can't. Okay. So now knight e2. Black parks his king in the side. Gets it out of the way. But you see here, look at these guys. They're still on the bench. Okay, white didn't have anything. It's not a bad move in that black's a piece ahead, but there's a better move. You got to get developed, and I guarantee you, if you just bring your pieces out, don't look at making any threats. If you bring your pieces out against players of this rating level, chances are they won't be bringing their pieces out, and you'll pick up a couple of tempos. Then your pieces will be on better squares, so you'll find all kinds of threats. Okay? So now the bishop comes back. I don't know why it came back. Just develop, you know. White had no threat. Now, I don't quite understand. Well, I do understand this move, but I don't quite understand the urgency. You're attacking a pawn. You're tying down two pieces to attacking a pawn, which can be protected by a pawn. Okay? And that's exactly what happens. Got to get these guys in the game. Okay? h3. Now, finally, this bishop gets developed. And now, again, starts, in essence, a comedy of errors. Okay. Black's going for the rook. There's nothing wrong with going for the rook. But there's a pawn with check available this move and for many moves to come. Okay? It was never played. Well, I think maybe it was played later, but too late. But okay, we'll see what I'm saying. So it's obvious what black's doing is going for this rook, and hey, nothing wrong with winning a rook. Now black's a piece and a rook ahead. Black has a clear win. White has nothing unless black makes a mistake. So g5, and look, it's still there, and this time it wins a rook. Yeah, we give up a bishop, but we're already up material. We can live with that. We're getting our queen developed. I've been saying this queen needs to get developed. What better place to develop than with a check? And if you don't want to take the rook, just back the bishop up. You're still up a lot of material. But anyway, white grabs this pawn, which allows, or black grabs that pawn, which allows white to grab a pawn of his own. And look, there it is. It's still there, but I said it was there for a while. So white goes after, or black goes after the queen. Queen's got to run, so it runs over here. And there's queen takes d3 check, still there. But black tries to chase the queen out. Didn't like that queen bothering him. But he does this at the cost of a piece. Okay? This gives up the bishop on g5. Now, black is only a rook up. He was a rook and a piece. Now he's only ahead of rook. So it's okay to give material back if you have to, but black didn't have to. So there's a pawn sitting here. I think it was sitting there been sitting there for a while that's available for the taking because the pawn's pinned, can't retake. So there it is. Queen takes, check. And I guess it picks up the rook. And it may even pick up the king. I mean, my goodness, look at this. Check. What is what's White going to do? White's lost here. If he plays King E1, Queen takes E2 as mate. So that leaves a bishop or a queen to interpose. If you interpose the queen, we take the knight off. We win the knight because black can't retake it, or white can't retake it. And I have a feeling black's close to getting a checkmate here. Rook G8 threatens mate in 1, forcing white to move the F pawn. If anything, just take this, and look at this. Your backup material. You're back up a rook and a knight like you were before. Okay. So what else can white do? You can still pick up this free piece. Okay. Actually, you don't even have to pick that piece up. Let's do it this way. Let's go this way. Let's repeat the position. The knight's pinned, so the king has no move. The bishop has to come back. So what we're going to do is repeat the position. Let's take with the queen. Just because we can. Where's the king going to go? If he goes to C1, queen takes queen D1 as mate, so the king has to come out. Be careful about queen takes C4 check because suddenly white will have bishop C3 check of his own. But I mean, there's good moves waiting to be had here. This is going to be embarrassing for white. If king C3, queen takes C4 as mate, right? If king down here, we get to win the bishop. And then the king. I do believe that's mate. So it didn't matter how white defended it. There's just all kinds of wonderful wins in there. And it all starts with taking a pawn with check. So black didn't see it. It was there for several moves. Whoops, he didn't play that. He played queen E8, attacking the knight. Well, I see the idea behind it. You're attacking a pinned piece, but you could have done it with check. Queen takes D3 check, as I just showed, wins in all lines. Okay, so now let's take stock here. Black's a rook up. White has what? 2 pawns for it. Not going to matter. Game's over. This is a perfect time to just trade queens and go into the ending. Queen takes. Bishop takes. Let's pick this guy up. Just take something else just because we can. Now, batten down the hatches. Cover the C5 weakness. Black's a rook up. White has nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay? Instead, black gets generous. Let's see, queen E3. Black plays rook G8. He sees the knight's pinned. He wants to check and force the king up, but he forgets that he's unprotecting his bishop. So now, an unforced error, just handed a piece back. Okay, queen D7. Now comes this nuisance check. Now suddenly this thing is... Oh, I got a friend's request. I accept all friends. Okay, all right. Anyway, bishop H6. Now white's getting ready to win more material. The rook's pinned and it's being attacked. And look what's there. Again, queen takes D3 check is there again. It's with check. Take it. Nope, he protects the rook. Now white plays knight f4, and now the queen takes d3 is no longer there. So I guess he never did take it. I was thinking he took it, but finally took it too late. He just never did take it. And now there's just liquidation. And suddenly, white has his material back, and white's 2 pawns ahead. So black's just gone from a completely winning game to fighting for a draw. And that's what's going to happen. He's going to be able to draw, but there were so many different ways to win this. Okay. And at least black's got his rook active. And here, I think he grabbed the wrong pawn. Okay. Go to h3 with the rook. The point being that you got a threat. You're threatening to win a rook. Okay? That's the better way to do it. And then you'll win this pawn, and you'll have a pass pawn. Okay, so, but if you're just happy with the draw, this will work. Now you go as the right square. And like I say, the pawns are just coming off the board, and there's a mistake too. You're basically giving him the h pawn. Okay, he's able to check it and win it. Just time to put your rook on the 7th rank, where it's aggressively posted and keeps an eye on the pawn on b2. But the game's with correct play is drawn, but sometimes you never know. There he gets it to the right square, and now it's just a matter of both sides just finally trading everything off. Now black goes the slow way, makes the game last one more move. Just play king c5 and get it over with, and then draw due to lack of mating material, insufficient mating material. So how do we correct these flaws in the black game? Well, we made you aware of them. Here, how many times was that pawn hanging on d3? How many moves? I don't know. At least 4, maybe 5, and it was always with check. And sometimes the stakes got better. You know, finally that one I played out, I found a mate. Assuming it's forced. If not, no big deal. It's still, you're up the world. But how do we correct things like that? Well, it just takes practice. Okay, greater board vision. When you make a move, and look at your pieces. What are they attacking? Ask yourself, what are my pieces attacking? Because it seemed to me black was capable of setting up threats. You know, he set up the idea of putting the bishop, the light squared bishop, on the a8 h1 diagonal to attack the queen and win the rook on h1. It seemed that a number of black's other maneuvers were designed to hit certain squares. You know, the rook g8 was to attack the pawn on g4, although it didn't seem to work. It seems black's capable of making moves that come up with threats. So how do we miss one movers like this? Well, we just takes practice. Hang in there, but correct some of these flaws in your games and work on your development, and you can move up to 1200-1300 pretty quickly. Keep submitting your other games in the Post Your Games for Analysis thread, where the members help each other out, and you'll correct most of your weaknesses here pretty quick. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to look at this, and I'll be back soon with another video. Take care.